In this video, I show you how to replace the mid-pipe on 94 to 97 Accords.
Here's the mid-pipe I need to replace. The reason I'm replacing it is because there's a hole in it right here at this weld. Look closely, you can see it. You can see it right there.
The OE mid-pipe is made up of an inner pipe and an outer pipe, which acts as an insulator. Exhaust gas is never supposed to flow through the outer pipe, so if exhaust is leaking, the inner pipe has rusted through.
Now you can see the O2 sensor is fastened in here, right in the top of the pipe, and it's clipped onto a bracket and then connected to the PCM harness. Before I mess with that, you have to remove these spring bolts here. Now this pipe's held on by a total of 4 spring bolts, one here, another on the other side here, and one here, and another one back here. Now you can take these off the easy way or the hard way. I'm going to try the easy way first, put a socket on this nut here and see if it comes off. If it doesn't come off, you can always cut it off. They give you a nice wide separation between the flanges here where you could just get a grinding wheel in there and just cut that off. One thing to be aware of if you're going to cut these off, these are under spring tension. The instant you fully cut through this, this fastener will shoot off in that direction, so be careful. For these 13s, let's see. Wow, didn't expect that. Okay. They look real rusty and nasty, but they're actually coming off pretty easily. That is a lot of rust. There we go. And there's one. Okay, I'll use the box end this time since it can't get trapped. Try not to knock my work light out of the way here. Don't have the best angle. See what I'm doing. Let me see. That does not feel right. This can't be a 16. It has to be a 15. Yep, that was a 15. It just had so much rust on it that it didn't feel that way. Okay, so it's a 15, not a 16. And out it comes. So same process on these further down here. Not much different. Use the right size wrench this time. God, rust. That's why I thought that these were going to be a pain to remove, but apparently not. See, I have to work the wrench on there. That's because of the rust accumulation on there. There we go. fun getting the wrench on up here. Now, if you have to cut this fastener out over here, you can see this beam's in the way, but it's easy to remove. 2 bolts up top, 3 on the bottom. I'll show you later, and this will come right down. I don't have to do that in this case, however. I'm using my 1/4 inch drive with a 13 shallow socket on it. And that gives you just enough room. Get a little bit of a turn. Fortunately, I can't find my swivel socket at the moment. That would be the best way to do this. There's the nut. There's the spring bolt. So you can see the O2 sensor threads into the center of the pipe right here and goes up. As you can see, it hooks to a bracket right here. Push this clip here to the right and pull it down and off. Like that. Then you can disconnect it from the PCM by squeezing this tab here and pulling it apart. Like that. Normally, obviously, you shouldn't pull on the wire, but this goes to the O2 sensor, which I'm replacing anyway, so I really don't care. Now, you want to check the connector coming off the O2 sensor here. They sell ones with both male pins and female pins, and they're not interchangeable. So, unfortunately, if you're replacing your O2 sensor, you have to go under the vehicle, disconnect it, and look what type of pins are on the O2 sensor side of the connector, not the PCM side. That's this side here. So this O2 sensor has male pins. If what you had coming off your O2 sensor looked like this, your O2 sensor has female pins. Now you can see the spring bolt here is being held captive by this bracket right here. You see it won't come out. So in order to get this out, I'm just going to twist it slightly. Now let me get that spring bolt out of there. So to remove this, I'm just going to rotate it like this. Push the catalytic converter back, and it comes right out. Now don't reuse the gaskets. It's not a good idea. Now as you can see, these gaskets are pretty nasty. Even pieces are starting to come off. Obviously I'm replacing the pipe. You replace the pipe, you replace the gaskets. I'll also be replacing the O2 sensor since it's on the pipe. Now this center beam gets in the way when you're trying to remove this right fastener. There's barely enough room to get in here with a 1/4 inch ratchet to slowly remove it. But if you're having an issue getting the bolt off and you need, a 3/8 inch ratchet or something, simply remove this center beam here, pop off one of these hangers here for the catalytic converter, loosen these 2 bolts here, loosen these 3 bolts here, and this whole center beam here that's getting in your way will drop down, and you'll have easy access without this beam in the way to that fastener. But if it comes off easily, as it did for me, removing the center beam isn't necessary. Now you want to get this old donut gasket off here. You should get a screwdriver and pry it off. If you're reinstalling old parts, I reuse them, but if you're installing new parts, just replace the gaskets. Sometimes they'll come off easy, other times they'll fight you the whole way. Sometimes it'll come off in one piece, other times it'll come off in pieces. Yeah, this one looks like it's going to end up coming off in pieces. As you can see here, these are the remnants of the old gasket material, and this is the metal that's on the actual pipe. So I'm just taking a screwdriver and just lightly digging out the old gasket material until we're down to the bare metal, as you can see right here. So that's all I'm doing. I'm not going to show the whole process because it's tedious, but that's all you have to do.
Then clean the gasket mating surface on the catalytic converter.
You want to clean the inside of the flange here where the gasket rides. You could use a wire wheel, some fine grit sandpaper. I'm just going to use my die grinder. Here's a look at one of the old gaskets. I think it has graphite in it, which acts as a lubricant to allow the two flanges to slide over one another, which is the whole purpose of those spring bolts. It's so that the two parts of the exhaust system can move independently of one another.
I had an issue with the original Walker mid-pipe I purchased that I didn't notice until after I installed it.
This shoulder is supposed to bottom out in this hole because obviously you put the fastener through the larger hole and this end of the fastener is supposed to bottom out. Look at this. So I start tightening it. It's supposed to bottom out here. Look what ended up happening. That slides on through like that. That's not supposed to happen.
In other words, the two holes on the mid-pipe flange were too large. I thought about using washers to make it work, but all too often when you start modifying parts, you find out that other things make it incompatible, so I decided to get a Bosel mid-pipe that fit properly.
Here are some of the O2 sensor sockets I have. One of them here has a narrow channel in it. That's part number, I think it's made by KD, yeah, KD3922. This one here has a wider channel in it, because occasionally the wires may not fit nicely in this channel here and you don't want to pinch them or damage the insulation, so I can use this one. This is also KD3920. And this one here is for tight quarters. It's a right angle O2 sensor socket. I don't know who made this one, but they're commonly available. One thing you'll notice is that my O2 sensor sockets all have a 6-point hex and not a 12-point hex. Now the reason why I prefer 6-point over 12-point is you have more surface area that you're grabbing on the O2 sensor, so you reduce the likelihood of rounding it off. With a 12-point, you'll be able to get the socket on in more positions, but you'll be grabbing less surface area on the fastener, and it's very likely that you'll end up rounding off the O2 sensor.
I don't recommend reusing the old O2 sensor as it will likely be rusted on and difficult to remove. But if you don't want to buy a new sensor, I recommend using heat. If you don't have a torch, start the vehicle up and allow it to reach operating temperature, then using a low profile right angle O2 sensor socket and extension, attempt to break it loose. Attempting to remove the sensor with the pipe on the vehicle may damage the donut gaskets, so be prepared to replace them if you're only replacing the O2 sensor. If you have a high-intensity torch head and Mapp gas, heat up around the bung that the O2 sensor threads into until it glows red. Then quickly put a socket on it and attempt to remove it. If it doesn't feel like it wants to move, continue heating it and try again. It may be tempting to use brute force without heat, but that usually just rounds off the hex on the sensor.
There it goes. I'm going to wait for that to cool down before I fully thread it out.
I could have done a better job heating it up evenly, but the flame from the Mapp gas torch I was using is nowhere near as hot as the flame from an oxyacetylene or oxypropane torch. With patience you can heat it up more evenly, but it will take some time. Even so, that amount of heat was enough to crack the sensor loose. Now it's time to prep the new mid-pipe.
Remove the plug. Plug has an 8mm hex on it. I already loosened it. Here's the new O2 sensor made by Denso. You can see they included a little bit of copper anti-seize to apply to the threads. Be very careful with anti-seize. You only want to apply it to the threads right here. Don't get it on the outer shell of the sensor or in any of these holes here. That could damage the sensor. Just apply a little bead. Spread it with your finger, being careful not to get it on the actual sensor. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way. You just want to apply it so there are no huge globs. This is good enough. And if you do get some anti-seize on the sensor shell there, spray a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol and it'll come off pretty easily. Reinstall the O2 sensor. The crush washer will be fine. I've reused them before and they haven't leaked. Three foot-pounds. There you go.
The Bosal mid-pipe uses wire mesh gaskets instead of solid graphite gaskets, which were super difficult to press on.
So what I did is press this gasket on as far as I could by hand. Then I placed it on the flat surface and pressed down until the gasket bottomed out against this lip here.
The gasket on the downpipe wouldn't press on at all, so I had to file down the inner diameter little by little until it was a tight fit. And yes, they were the right gaskets.
So after filing down the inside diameter and test fitting it a few times, I got it to press on. Now you want to remove enough material so you could firmly press it on. It should take quite a bit of effort to press it on, but you don't want it so loose, obviously, that it just slips on. Otherwise, it could leak. Install it, make sure the O2 sensor is pointing out towards the driver's side. Slip it on the front first, then press back. And then you could just rotate it. Make sure the O2 sensor is pointing up. I like to apply a bit of anti-seize to the threads. As you can see, there's no globs. It's a nice even coat so it doesn't make a mess. Let's see here. There's another fastener on the other side. No need to show it. snug those up slightly. I don't want to snug them up all the way just yet. Get some tension on them. Want to snug these up evenly. What I should have done was installed this fastener before I installed the flange. But if you forget, just push the exhaust system back, slide it in at an angle, then up and around like that. And it'll fit in fine. But yeah, that's what I should have done. Install that one first before installing the pipe. Now, there we go. Now it fits. I don't know why they couldn't have just moved this bracket back a little bit so that this doesn't get in the way. I mean, they wouldn't have to move it back that far. All right, now I'll just put some tension on the spring bolt and get the fastener in. You know what? I'm gonna do this the easier way. Get a pry bar, put it back here and just pry forward so you can get that spring bolt on.
If I hadn't tightened the fasteners up on the other side so much, I wouldn't have had to pry as hard.
Just be careful you don't shoot it off in your face. There we go. Pry forward. I can snug the fasteners up. Now, as you can see, I'm only using a 1/4 inch drive ratchet. These don't need to be very tight, so just don't go to absolute town on them. There you go. Then just reconnect the O2 sensor. First clip the connector on the O2 sensor onto the bracket. Then you can just reconnect the connector.
Then start the vehicle up and check for leaks.